My dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "Jake's got kids, so he deserves your house. Just hand it over." When I refused to give up the home I worked for, my mom leaned in and whispered something that shattered what little trust one had left in them. My father declared, "Jake has children, so he requires your residence more. Relinquish it." When I declined, my mother leaned in, her voice a chilling murmur. "Then we will ensure you regret it." The following morning, my bank contacted me, stating an attempt had been made to interfere with my mortgage, and I immediately knew it was their doing. I had always been aware of their preference for Jake, but I never imagined they would stoop to such depths. It all began with my struggle to claim that house as my own. I had invested my entire being into my modest dwelling, 3 bedrooms, a somewhat uneven backyard, my personal haven. After years of barely getting by, every nail hammered into the walls, every weed I pulled, felt truly mine. I held 2 jobs, skipped meals, and observed friends embarking on lavish holidays while I meticulously saved every coin. My parents showed no interest when I finalized the purchase 3 years prior. My father merely grunted, "Homes are a burden," and my mother inquired if I would paint the spare room for their visits. That was the extent of it. No pride, no assistance, just apathy. I didn't anticipate much. They had always adored Jake, the favored son who could never err. However, last week, they crossed a boundary I never foresaw. We were seated at their dining table, the soft clinking of cutlery filling the quiet space. My father dabbed his mouth, settled back, and stated, "Jake has children, so he requires your residence more. Relinquish it." My fork paused in midair, mashed potatoes suspended. I blinked, awaiting a jest. Jake smirked from across the table, his wife, Laura, nodding as if it were the most self-evident proposition. My home, the one I had built from nothing for them? "No," I uttered, my voice trembling, a warmth rising in my chest. "That is preposterous." My father shrugged, as if I had merely declined to pass the salt. But my mother, she drew near, her perfume sharp, her gaze gleaming like a predator's. "Then we will ensure you regret it," she whispered, low enough for only me to hear. A smile, cold and deliberate, curved her lips. I drove home in a daze, her words replaying in my mind, "Regret it." What could that even imply? I secured my doors that night, double-checked the windows, yet sleep eluded me. Fear gnawed at me, fear of what they might do, how far they might go. Anger simmered too, scorching and bitter. They had never perceived me as their son, merely a means to an end. A heavy dread settled in my stomach. I had long known of their partiality toward Jake, his vehicles, his education, his blunders they always rectified. But this was a declaration of war over a simple meal. My sanctuary, my tranquility, they sought to seize it. I would not permit it. The morning following that dinner, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. My heart still felt heavy from my mother's veiled threat, but I assumed it was just an unsolicited call. It was not. The voice on the other end was clear, professional, a woman from my bank. "We need to confirm some activity on your mortgage account," she stated. "There's a request to transfer ownership, but the documentation is incorrect." My stomach plummeted. I shot upright, sheets entangling around my legs. "What request? I didn't submit anything." She paused, then lowered her voice. "Someone did. Can you come in?" I was out the door in 10 minutes, my pulse pounding. At the bank, the atmosphere felt dense, stifling. The manager slid a stack of documents across the desk, my mortgage details, my address, my name. But the signature, it was not mine. The curves were too sharp, the angle too flawless. Someone had falsified it. My hands trembled as I leafed through the papers. Buried within the fine print was the crucial detail. They had attempted to transfer the title into Jake's name. I fixated on the page until the words blurred, my breathing shallow. They were not bluffing. The previous night, they had already begun their machinations against me. I drove directly to a coffee shop, unable to face my house just yet, and telephoned my mother. My fingers fumbled with the device, fury bubbling up. She answered on the third ring, her voice cloyingly sweet. "Morning, dear. Sleep well?" I wasted no time. "You tried to appropriate my house, forged my very signature." Silence. Then a soft chuckle, as if I had uttered a harmless joke. "Oh, do not be so dramatic," she responded. "You are too self-centered to grasp what family truly signifies. Jake requires this." I clutched the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. "Self-centered? I labored for that house. You did not lift a finger." She sighed, impatient. "We are simply acting in everyone's best interest." I disconnected before I could scream. Back home, I paced the living room, the walls I had painted seeming to stare back at me. Betrayal's grip tightened profoundly. This was no longer mere favoritism. They had fabricated legal documents, crossed boundaries I never thought they would dare. My own parents viewed me as nothing, merely a tool to bolster Jake, their true offspring. Rage intensified with each stride. I yearned to shatter something, anything. But fear also crept in, cold and silent. If they had gone this far in a single night, what would come next? That whisper from my mother, "We will ensure you regret it," echoed louder now, a promise I could not disregard. I collapsed onto the sofa, gazing at the ceiling. Jake's smug expression from dinner flashed in my mind. Did he know? Did he consent to this? Growing up, he received the new bicycles, the second chances, while I mended my shoes with tape. I had accepted it, built my life regardless. But this was different. This was my home, my effort and sacrifice, and they believed they could snatch it away as if it were worthless. My chest constricted, a blend of wrath and something sharper, perhaps hurt. Maybe I had never been enough for them, and now they had confirmed it. I retrieved my laptop and began searching for legal counsel, my fingers flying across the keys. No more waiting, no more hoping they would withdraw. If they desired a confrontation, they would certainly get one. I located an attorney downtown, sharp reviews, a no-nonsense demeanor, and scheduled an appointment for the following day. As I confirmed it, a peculiar tranquility settled over me. The trust one had clung to, that fragile link connecting me to them, had severed. They were no longer my kin, they were adversaries, and I would treat them as such. That night, I rechecked the locks, the deadbolt clicking into place with a finality that mirrored my mood. Sleep remained elusive. Every creak of the house made me flinch, every shadow felt like a menace. Yet, beneath the apprehension, something new was taking root, determination. They had initiated hostilities, but I would not yield without a struggle. My house, my existence, they would not seize it, not yet. A week after the bank incident, I remained on edge, startled by every sound. I had met with the lawyer, Tom, a gruff man with a firm handshake, and he had begun investigating the forgery. Solid case, he had affirmed, but it did not alleviate the tension in my chest. I was preparing dinner that evening, the aroma of garlic permeating the kitchen, when a sharp crack rent the air. My spatula clattered to the floor. I rushed to the window. An orange glow flickered outside, unnatural and menacing. Smoke stung my eyes as I flung open the back door. My garage was ablaze. Flames lit the wooden frame, consuming the roof I had repaired last summer. I stumbled outside, phone trembling in my hand as I dialed emergency services. "Fire! My garage! It's burning!" The operator's calm voice barely penetrated my panic. Sirens wailed in the distance, but I remained rooted there as the inferno devoured everything. My vehicle gone, the toolbox I had saved for, the old bicycle from my childhood, all reduced to ash. By the time the firefighters arrived, it was too late. They doused the embers, black smoke billowing into the night, and one of them drew me aside. "This was not an accident," he stated, his voice low. "Gasoline. Arson!" My knees buckled. "Arson!" The word struck me like a physical blow. I knew who was responsible before he even finished. Inside, I accessed my security footage, grainy, but sufficiently clear. There was Jake, dousing the garage with a can of gasoline, his face contorted in a smirk. And my mother, she stood by their car, arms crossed, observing like a director on a film set. My breath caught, a sob escaping before I could suppress it. They had not merely attacked my property, they had incinerated my life, the foundations I had built from nothing. I sat on the couch, staring at the charred remains through the window. Grief washed over me, heavy and suffocating. That garage was not just possessions, it represented years of struggle, memories of late nights fixing things myself because no one else would. Now it was debris, and they had done this. Fury surged next, hot and blinding. I longed to storm their residence, scream, break something of theirs. But beneath it, a deeper ache pulsed. My own family hated me this intensely. I was not merely expendable, I was a target. The fire crew departed around midnight, their lights receding down the street. "Call Tom," I muttered, my voice raw. "They burned my garage. Jake and Mom. I have it on camera." He did not hesitate. "Bring it in tomorrow. We'll add arson to the list." I nodded, though he could not see me, and ended the call. The police arrived next, 2 officers, weary but empathetic. I handed over the footage, observing their expressions harden as Jake's smirk played across the screen. "We will file a report," one said, "but proving intent is challenging without more." I did not care about challenging. I cared about stopping them. Alone once more, I walked out to the wreckage, the air still heavy with soot. The car's frame was a twisted shell, the toolbox melted into slag. I kicked a charred plank, pain shooting up my leg, but it felt good, tangible. They believed this would crush me, compel me to surrender the house. They were mistaken. If anything, it ignited something within me, a fire of my own. I was no longer merely defending a structure. This was deeply personal, a boundary they had crossed that I would never forgive. I returned inside, retrieved a beverage, and sat in the darkness. The lawyer would construct the case, the police had the recording, but I knew it would not conclude here. My mother's whisper replayed, "We will ensure you regret it." And now I comprehended the extent of her willingness. My hands tightened around the bottle, knuckles white. They had seized my stability, my peace, but I would be damned if they took my resolve. Tomorrow, I would retaliate more fiercely. They desired regret. They would experience it first. The morning after the fire, my house carried the scent of a campfire gone awry. I stood in the kitchen, contemplating the coffee pot, when the doorbell startled me from my reverie. A mail carrier presented me with a plain envelope, no return address, just my name scrawled in shaky handwriting. I tore it open, anticipating a bill or a neighbor's condolence note. Instead, it was a letter from Mr. Hensley, my father's old fishing companion, a man I had not encountered since childhood. My eyes scanned the first line, and my heart ceased. "I have kept this secret too long. Your mother forged your name on a loan when you were 18. I sank into a chair, the paper trembling in my hands. He recounted how he had been at their house years ago, drinking beers while my mother hunched over the kitchen table with a pen. She had boasted about it, claiming she had used my signature to secure $10,000 for Jake's college tuition, laughing that I would never notice. Hensley had implored her to stop, but she had dismissed him. "He is young, he will recover," she had said. I had been working at a gas station then, sleeping on a futon, saving for a future they were already pilfering. The loan's debt had pursued me, decimating my credit until I had painstakingly recovered, alone. Shock numbed me initially, a cold wave that left me staring at the wall. Then rage struck, a tidal surge that caused me to crumple the letter in my fist. All those years I had struggled, they had been profiting from me. Jake's degree, his complacent grin, he had built his life on my suffering, and they had allowed it. The wound deepened, a knife twisting in my gut. I had been their son, their child, and they had viewed me as a target, a piggy bank to exploit whenever Jake required a boost. My entire upbringing, "We are proud of you," they never uttered, it was a deception. I contacted Tom, my voice hoarse as I read him the letter. "This alters everything," he declared. "We already possess their history of fraud, check scams in the 90s, your mother's fabricated identification. This connects it directly to you. I had asked him to investigate after the forgery, but I had not anticipated this. He faxed me their criminal records, pages of swindles, evaded fines, probations they had charmed their way through. Career criminals, not parents. Hensley's confession was the missing piece, evidence they had been exploiting me since before I could defend myself. I paced the living room, the acrid scent from outside seeping through the gaps. That loan explained so much. Why banks had rejected me early on, why I had started from scratch. They had gambled with my life, and now they desired my house too. The viewers would feel it with me. This was not merely treachery. It was a usurpation of my past, my trust, my very identity. I envisioned my mother smirk as she signed my name, my father nodding in agreement, and my fists clenched until my nails pierced my skin. They had made a fool of me, and I had fallen for their act. But I was no longer that child. I retrieved a container from the closet, stuffing it with the letter, Tom's documents, the security footage, every fragment of their misdeeds. My hands steadied as I worked, a strategy forming, jagged and perilous. They had torched my garage, attempted to break me, but this was leverage. I was no longer solely fighting for my house. I was fighting for every year they had stolen, every opportunity they had crushed. The fear that had kept me awake at night transformed into something colder, sharper, purpose. I sealed the container and placed it by the door, my breathing evening out. Hensley's words echoed. "I'm sorry I did not tell you sooner." Too late for apologies, but not for retribution. They believed they could continue taking. They were about to discover I would reclaim twice as much. 2 days after Hensley's letter, I was still reeling, the box of evidence resting like a loaded weapon by my door. I had barely slept, the weight of their betrayal pressing down harder each night. Then Jake messaged me. "Meet me at the diner on 5th. Alone now, my stomach churned. The last time I had seen him, he was incinerating my garage. But something in the "please" at the end prompted me to go. I grabbed my phone, set it to record, and drove over. The engine's hum did little to soothe my nerves. He was in a secluded booth, hunched over a coffee, appearing as though he too had not slept. His eyes darted up as I slid into the seat opposite him, bloodshot and wide. "We're in deep," he stated, his voice low and cracking. "Loan sharks. $150,000. They will kill us if we do not pay." My jaw tightened. "Us?" He swallowed, hands trembling around the mug. "Me, Laura, the kids. They know where we reside. Mom and Dad said your house could settle it." I leaned back, staring at him. "So you burned my garage to frighten me into selling?" He flinched, guilt momentarily flashing across his face. "I did not want to. They forced me." Terror then clawed at me, not just for my house, but for my life. Loan sharks did not trifle. I had seen enough news reports to know what transpired when debts went unpaid. My heart pounded, envisioning them appearing at my door, weapons drawn, because of my parents' recklessness. Disgust followed. "Jake, their pawn, too spineless to refuse. You could have warned me," I snapped. He looked away, muttering, "I was afraid." Pity flickered for his children, 2 young girls ensnared in this, but it was submerged by anger. "You are a coward," I stated, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Always have been." That night, my phone rang. My father's number. I initiated recording and answered, bracing myself. "You are complicating this unnecessarily," he growled. "No greeting, no pretense. Sell the house, or we will bury you." My blood ran cold. This was no empty threat, it was a raw, genuine death threat. "You would murder your own son?" I questioned, forcing the words out. He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You are no son if you permit us to rot." The line went dead, and I sat there, phone in hand, the room spinning. The audience would feel it too, dread coiling tightly, the air thick with menace. I replayed the call, his voice echoing in the darkness. "Bury me." They had escalated from theft to arson to this, murder on the table, all for their cherished Jake. Fear gripped me fiercely, but it sharpened my focus. I was no longer safe, not in my own home, not anywhere. I thought of those circling sharks, of my mother's cold gaze, my father's clenched fists. My hands trembled, but not from weakness, from adrenaline, from an imperative to act. They had pushed me to the brink, and I was not falling alone. The next morning, I met Tom at his office, the box thudding onto his desk. I played him the recording, observing his eyebrows rise. "That is a felony threat," he remarked, taking notes. "With the arson, the fraud, we have them dead to rights." I nodded, but my mind raced beyond jail. Prison would not deter loan sharks, it would only delay them. What if I use this? I inquired, tapping the phone. Force them to back off. Tom frowned, then shrugged. Risky, but feasible. You would require leverage, something they cannot disregard. I departed his office with a plan forming, jagged and perilous. The evidence was my weapon, forgery, arson, Hensley's letter, my father's voice promising my demise. I could go to the authorities, witness them apprehend my mother and father, but that would not touch the sharks. Or I could turn it against them, make them recoil first. My chest tightened, a mixture of terror and resolve. They had instigated a war, raised the stakes to bloodshed. Fine. I would play their game, but more shrewdly. Back home, I secured every door, checked the windows twice. The house felt like a besieged fortress, but I was not concealing myself. I was strategizing. Jake's apprehension, my father's menace, they had inadvertently provided me with the means to their downfall. I simply had to discern how to employ them. My life, my home, my struggle, they would regret awakening this aspect of me. The following day, I stood outside their residence, my phone recording in my pocket, the box of evidence tucked under my arm. My father's threat, "We will bury you," still resonated in my ears, but I transformed it into resolve. Tom had prepared me, get them talking, secure the agreement, then we proceed. I took a deep breath, the air sharp with November's chill, and knocked. My mother opened the door, her smile as saccharine as ever. "Sweetheart, finally come to your senses?" I pushed past her, entering the living room where my father reclined on the armchair and Jake fidgeted on the sofa, avoiding my gaze. I placed the box on the coffee table, the thud echoing. "We are finished playing games," I stated, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "I possess everything, your forgery, the arson recording, Hensley's letter, your threat to kill me." My mother's smile faltered for just an instant, then recomposed. "You are bluffing," she declared, crossing her arms. I pulled out my phone, pressed play, and my father's voice filled the room. "Sell the house, or we will bury you." His face twitched, but he remained still. Jake's head dropped into his hands. "Here is the arrangement," I said, leaning forward. "Sign your house over to me, full deed, no conditions, or I will take this to the authorities. Arson, fraud, threats, you will rot in prison, and the loan sharks will still pursue you." My mother laughed, high and brittle. "You would not dare. We are your family." I met her gaze, unyielding. "Family does not burn my garage. Family does not steal my life." My father lunged then, red-faced, fists clenched. "You little..." He swung at me, swift and wild. I ducked, my heart pounding as Jake seized his arm, pulling him back. "Stop it, Dad." Jake's voice cracked, desperate. The room froze, tension thick as tar. My father shook Jake off, breathing heavily, but he did not attempt another strike. My mother's eyes narrowed, calculating. "And what do we receive?" she inquired, as if this were a negotiation at a flea market. "You gain your freedom," I replied. "I will sell your house, settle the shark's debt, retain mine. You walk away clean, more than you merit." My father snorted, but I observed the flicker in his eyes, fear. They were cornered, and they knew it. Jake spoke up, his voice small. "Just do it. I cannot lose my children over this." My mother shot him a look that could have shattered glass, but he did not back down. I produced papers from the box. Tom had prepared them, a deed transfer, ready for signatures. No, I stated, sliding them across. My father glared, but my mother grasped a pen, her hand steady as she inscribed her name. You will regret this, she muttered. My father signed next, his signature jagged, reluctant. Jake merely watched, pale and silent. I gathered the documents, triumph surging through me, sharp and electric. I had reversed the narrative, seized their authority. The house they had lorded over us, the one they had remortgaged to fund their schemes, was now mine. The audience would feel it too, a rush of victory, tinged with the tension from my father's swing, the lingering threat of violence. But inside I felt hollow. They had signed, but their hateful stares burned into me. This was not a love lost, it was a bond severed with a blade, and I had wielded it. You believe you have triumphed? My mother stated as I turned to leave, her voice low and venomous. This is not over. I paused at the door, looking back. It is for me. Outside I exhaled, the cold air biting my lungs. The papers felt substantial in my hands. Leverage, yes, but also an unexpected burden. I had outmaneuvered them at their own game, outsmarted the predators who had raised me. Yet the thrill quickly faded, leaving a bitter aftertaste. They were no longer my parents, merely adversaries I had